Hey guys, FRS Guy here. Let's do a little video on some of the mods that I've done. We'll start with suspension, like what I've done for suspension mods, kind of run down what I do have and kind of why I did it, what my thought process was. And the next one will be on performance mods, which probably a lot of you already know if you've been watching the channel, but kind of a breakdown on what I did, the progression, and why you have to do certain things. Let's get into it. Alright, let's fire this thing up, pull her out of the garage. Woo!
X-band, K-band, K-A-band, laser.
Okay, some of the first mods you're going to do on your GT86 FRS BRZ would be suspension, right? First thing is you got to get rid of those wheels and tires. The stock wheels and tires are terrible, but they're not intended to be good. Those are Prius wheels and tires. Those are only intended to get you home so you can put the wheels and tires on that you want. Okay? I'm going to recommend summer tires. Unless you have to drive it all year round, then I'd recommend all seasons. But more than likely, you're going to need winter tires if you drive it in the winter. So in that case, summer tires are good, are the best tire in the dry, in the rain. So I'd recommend summer tires and then switching to winter tires for winter. But here's what I did. I started off right away. I got the 18 by 8 inch wheels, and I ran a 225 tire. 225/40, so it's just slightly taller than stock, because naturally aspirated, if you put too tall of a tire on it, you're gonna bog the motor down. She hasn't got a lot of grunt, so I want to keep as much gear as possible, but I want to pick up a little bit of tire for a little bit better ride. And then after that, I went to the Michelin's Pilot Sports, right? And that was a huge upgrade over the, I think I had the Cooper all-season performance tires on it, which were pretty good. I went to a track day and drove past almost every car without even having a summer tire on, so it was pretty good. They were pretty decent tires, but nothing like these Pilot Sports, okay, for everyday driving. These were a lot better. So first thing, you want to get some different wheels and tires. The 18 by 8 with a 225 fits, no problems. You're not going to mess around at all. You start going to the 245, then you have to worry about fitment. You can see now in the rear I do have a staggered fit, and the 245 is a little tight, but it's not rubbing yet, so I don't think I have any problems. People say you can't run staggered fit on this car. That's absolutely because they've never did stagger fit. They don't know. I'm running a stagger fit, and I think I still have pretty well balanced handling. It's hard to say if I have more front end grip or not. Right now I can't push the front end, but it's still cold. It's not summer yet, so it's hard to tell. I haven't been pushing the car that hard. But so far at the staggered fit, once you start increasing the power and getting your tune sorted out and running flex fuel, even naturally aspirated, you're going to need a bigger tire than a 225. For handling. When I first put the 225s or the Michelin's on, she didn't spin at all, like through the roundabouts. I could just get on it. But after refining my tune more and more, then I started getting sideways again. So rear-wheel drive cars need stagger fit. That's why I think every single rear-wheel drive car has staggered fit, because you need to hook up the power. There's no way around it. And this car is no exception. Once you're boosted, staggered fit, I'll probably wind up going to a 235 in the front, so I can stick with the 8-inch wheel for lighter weight, and then I'm going to have probably sticking with the 245 in the back. But honestly, you could probably go to 255 in the back once you're boosted. Next thing you want to do is lower the car. Okay. I lucked out. I knew I was going to want KW shocks, because all the research I was doing, if you're going to drive the car, you want good handling, you have to have a better shock. And then the shocks I was looking at weren't, the KW wasn't that much more, so I'm like, well, if I'm going to get them, I'm going to go all out. The only problem is, how do you lower it in the meantime before you get your good shocks, because they're expensive. So I was lucky, found some used ones on eBay, so I jumped right to the KWs and called it a day. But there's in between, like this is a daily car. The only problem with coilovers on a car you drive every single day is rust, and in the north you're going to have salt. So any vehicle in the north you can't run coilovers on for a daily car. You're just going to have to run, like, there's better aftermarket shocks, like who makes them? K&N, Monroe, Bilstein, somebody. There's a couple different brands that even have adjustments on it, but are more of a stock style strut. You put those on there with lowering springs, call it a day. Okay, you're not gonna get the best handling, but you'll get better handling, and the car will look good. But I went right to KWs. The next thing you're gonna do, so now you have your wheels and tires. You have it lowered a little bit. Now some people are going to slam their car all the way down. I am not. I want maximum handling. So you want to lower it a little bit, but you don't want to get it too low. The only problem is, the next step was going to be sway bars. Okay. Let's see if we can see this under there. Yeah, we can. So there's my KW shock. The next things after wheels and tires and lowering it is at minimum, this rear sway bar needs to be a little bit thicker. Okay, I think, if I remember right, it's a 14 millimeter sway bar. The cheapest, easiest way to improve handling substantially is you get a WRX rear sway bar, which I believe is 16 millimeter. Either way, it's like 2 millimeters bigger than stock. I can't remember what the exact numbers are, but I think it's a 16 millimeter. You throw that on the back of this car with some tires, and that is a huge difference. I ran that for a little while. I was happy with that setup. Okay. So you switch out the rear sway bar. Ultimately, I went to white line sway bars because they're the best value. I have an 18 millimeter in the back, which might be on a touch on the aggressive side, but I like it. And then I have the 21 in the front. I don't know if we're going to be able to see this. I don't have the car jacked up. Let's see here. Can we see it? Can we see the sway bar? Yes, we can. I can't see the camera. So I have the 21 in the front, and that's probably barely enough. So if you're going to bigger sway bars, I'd do a minimum of a 16 in the rear and then a 21 in the front. And then the white line has two settings. I'm on the stiff setting. If you want a softer ride, you can have the 21 on the softer setting. So this is technically similar to like a 22 millimeter, which I think in the front is just enough. Could be, for my liking, it could be a little stiffer in the front, but overall the car is pretty well balanced. So I could go to a one step stiffer in the front, but the 18 in the back is pretty stiff, I'm gonna have to say, and I'm on the middle adjustment. There's 3 adjustments. You could soften it, go to the 18 on the softer, but I went neutral, the middle adjustment, and it seems pretty well balanced. Another thing you're gonna have to do, it's hard to, I don't have it jacked up, so, but you can see this link. And at first I was using the stock links in the back to kind of keep it softer, but for some reason this side the bolt kept backing out. I don't know why. It's crazy, but that bolt kept loosening up and coming out. In fact, I did a track day with that nut was, or it must have loosened up and came off during the track day, but I still passed like every single car out there. It was a casual track day. It wasn't a race day. And it was just Hondas, and it was a Honda and Subaru day. So WRXs and STIs don't have nothing on this car. And I had the KWs on. I had the sway bars on, but I only had all-season tires. If I had summer tires on, I would have been killing those guys. And I had stock brake pads. And the stock brakes were okay for that. The next thing you're going to have to do is get these adjustable lower control arms to adjust your camber. Okay? When you lower this car, you can see back there your tow arm. I'm going to get into that. When you lower this car, you're adding camber to this car. So a lot of people who want that cambered look, you don't have to do anything. Just get it, slam it down, adjust your toe, and then call it a day. I want maximum handling. Now on the street, we're not really pushing these cars that hard. Plus I'm trying to drag race it, so I need to take camber out. So I have just a little bit in there, maybe a negative a half a degree in the back. Just a little bit. But then when you replace these lower control arms, what happens is you can't adjust the toe. And then you need those toe arms. So then that adds a little bit of cost. Because now you have to get both arms at the same time, or the lower control arms are useless. It throws the toe so far off you can't even drive the car. So if you get the adjustable lower control arms, you have to get the toe arms. But then once you adjust it, it's sweet. So the back, yep, lower control arms, KW shocks, toe arms, sway bar with the links. You might as well get the links right away. I tried to save money, it didn't work. Had to buy them separate. And that's the basic rear suspension. The next thing you have to do is add your white line bushings. This subframe, there's bushings for that to stiffen it up. There's bushings to stiffen up your pumpkin. There's a couple ways to do that. There's the bushings, there's the arms. Right now I'm in the bushing setting and it seems good, but I may have to mount a camera down here now with the supercharger and see if I'm still getting flex. Naturally aspirated, this is good enough. You throw the bushings in, you're good. That tightens it up quite a bit. I'm trying to tighten it up without it being too harsh. This rear gets pretty harsh, but the handling goes way up. So I have the white line bushings throughout the pumpkin, the rear subframe, and the front. The next thing that's going to happen, when you lower these cars, again, you're throwing off your geometry, so the back you have to get those adjustable things. The front, I can see them. And then the front, what I had to do is get these Buddy Club lower control arms. That repositions your ball joint. You can see it in there. Oops. Yeah, you can see it in there. These Buddy Club lower control arms. That changes your geometry. With when I got the rear lower control arms and took the camber out, that added a lot of traction. Then this front end would just slide through the turn. I could push the front end. It would just slide through the turn. Once I fixed the geometry and got the Buddy Clubs on the front, or you can get the longer ball joint. There's a couple ways to do it. That fixed the geometry in the front, and then it was balanced again. So it would go through pretty neutral. So that's kind of your suspension. You have to get wheels and tires. I would up the sway bars. Okay, you don't have to go as heavy as I did. You go heavier than me, you're pretty much building a track car. Okay, I think I'm at the limit so you can drive it on the street without it being too crazy. Some kind of lowering springs or shocks or something. If you're going to get coilovers, you got to spend a little bit. You get the cheap ones, you're going to wind up replacing them. It's going to be a waste of money. It's not going to be worth it. If you're going to just get cheap ones, just get lowering springs and call it a day. Unless you're just really trying to get the car as low as possible. But don't drive those coilovers in snow or salt because they'll corrode. Get your suspension bushings throughout. The front suspension, rear suspension, your rear pumpkin, things like that. And that's the suspension setup. That's kind of how I went through it, how I progressed, where I'm at now. It handles so good now. I think I'm done, but I think I've done most everything you need to do. There's one more thing. There's torque arms in the rear, and with the supercharger, if I run into problems with that, I may have to go to the torque arms in the rear suspension. But other than that, for what I'm doing for a street car, it handles phenomenal. If I wanted to, I could do rally events because it's got the setup. But for right now, I think I'm pretty good. And next video we'll do the performance mods.